Please be sure that it is recording, dude, because I don't want to talk for like 2 hours and then there's like no like record of it.
Famous last words, or this is going to be hopefully a good one. So, welcome everyone to another podcast episode, possibly, hopefully. If it's uploaded, well done, we've made it. But
Surely.
yeah, another one for the video game anatomies, joined again by my two regulars over here, Mr. Slow and Mr. Sock. How are both of you gents doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
All good, my side. You, Mr. Slow?
Doing pretty good, man.
All good, all good. Now, so we have a fun little topic today about one of the more underrated mechanics in gaming, because I think it has a lot of strategy to it or something. It is about, enemy or monster infighting, everybody fighting, basically. So yeah, in most games, obviously, our objective would be we fight a lot of enemies, we progress through the game by fighting a lot of enemies to fight even bigger enemies at the end of the game. But in some games, the enemies sometimes have disagreements with each other, and they're not just two slabs of meat shooting at will. Sometimes have disagreements, and they sometimes fight between each other if some precondition happens. So this has kind of been. It seems trivial to assume this, like, oh yeah, enemies should definitely fight if they hit each other or something like that. But it has been used very sparingly over the years and in pretty limited genres. So, if you had to have a think now, what are the genres you remember enemy or monster infighting to be in?
Well, obviously for me, it's going to be mostly RPGs and stuff, and even some MMOs have it. But those are genres that I know that always has enemies fighting each other.
Yeah, I was gonna say like any like open world or sandbox kind of game would always have that.
Basically, yeah, if you have because open world and those sort of games have, RPGs as well, have a lot of emerging gameplay and stuff to come out, so that is natural to see. Shooter is one of the big genres, but basically adventure games, survival games, horror games. The possibility basically is if your game has an action or combat component, if you have coded it infighting is definitely possible because of your action combat component that you've coded in. So even in a technical sense, even some RTS games like Command and Conquer and Age of Empires at it, though we will get into the technical details of that a little bit later. I don't see those ones as pure infighting, which I'll get to right now. But yeah, pure infighting, it's not really something that was possible back in the days of arcade game stuff, basically mostly because of memory. Obviously at that point you just have the big box of the screen and it's not really good for memory or the registers and all that, because it's just a lot. There's something extra to store besides the sprites, the values you have to store, the player's health, the save, whatever. So not really feasible for arcades or for the early home consoles. But also, like the genres of those early days, it didn't really make too much sense. With text adventure, obviously, there's no real representation there of infighting. Rogue games really didn't have it. Beat 'em ups really didn't have it all that much that I could see. If it was going to be any early candidate, it would, as Sok has mentioned here, early RPGs like The Legend of Zelda or perhaps a dungeon crawler. But it wasn't around at that time. Probably still because of the whole memory issue thing and all of that. So, with all that said, and we've now seen a little bit of the genres, you want to try and think who was the first to do it?
I would say Mario. I'll take a hunch. Say Mario.
A platformer. Yep.
Yes, it's maybe even like some side scroller Metroidvania type of thing, maybe. It won't be Metroid, but like Castlevania or something.
It was Doom.
Wow.
What?
It was Doom at the first time. I thought you were gonna notice it, Slow, given you played through all Dooms very recently.
Oh well.
So it's really recent, actually.
It's really recent.
That's like 30-something years ago.
It's not. Like I said, it wasn't a candidate for early genres because of the memory issue and stuff like that, and I get it. and it wasn't obviously a candidate for the machine and hardware at that time, which I also get. So it did come about recently because it had to be in a genre where there had to be a lot of combat. RPGs do have combat, obviously, and I think if at the time it was possible, it probably would have implemented it into something like that, but it came to shooters because that was the first very combat-centric genre of those times. But yeah, if in future any of you watching or listening to this podcast or my guests need a quick answer for any game, at this point, there's only 3 games answers you can always give if you're not sure. It's either Doom, Legend of Zelda, or Half-Life. One of these 3, some probably invented the thing we're talking about, as is always the case. But so why I said Doom and specifically not Wolfenstein 3D, interestingly enough, is that was something that didn't put into Wolfenstein 3D, despite it only being a year earlier from ID Software, because the modus operandi generally for shooters and stuff or combat at the time was, but shooters mostly, is if an enemy walks into the firing path of another enemy, either 2 things that happen. The first one is they would detect the obstruction towards between them and the player, and they would stop firing. They would cease their fire, whatever. Or the second option is the bullet goes and it completely ignores this as something it can hit, as a collision or something. It passes through the other enemy and hits you, which I think might have been a little frustrating, especially in something like Wolfenstein. If you were quite low health and you see this enemy walk in front of you and a phantom bullet just goes and it just shoots you, and you end up dying on the level. So it looks like with that, Doom looked to rectify this by adding one of the more underrated innovations of them in the game. But I'm going to go a little bit more into it with Doom in this podcast, especially Doom in this podcast, because I find the coding and approach they did to it very fascinating. And I think if either of you, like I said, I thought Slow was going to know a little bit more about this because he did play the Dooms very recently, but it sounds like you guys don't know too much about it, which is going to be very fun because now we can go very deep into it. So it's not just, it wasn't just a cut and dry Monster 1 attacked Monster 2, so Monster 2 attacks Monster 1. It wasn't just that in the end. In the beginning, it was a coding oversight they made because their coding approach was basically this. They didn't want to see the projectile as the cause of the damage to the demon, to the enemy, whatever. They wanted it to be who fired the projectile to hit the demon. And in their coding, they always assumed the last projectile, which is a bullet, to hit the demon would be from the player. That was their assumption. They literally said, whatever shot the last projectile, go attack that thing. And then what they happened to see in playtesting was, oh my gosh, all these demons are killing each other. Because they kept throwing projectiles and they kept hitting each other, so there was just an all-out war, basically. And they said, ooh, well, this could be a very, very cool thing if we could strategize with this and all that. And they started to, work on it a little bit, flesh it out a little bit more, and get a bit of a, shall we say, rule set into it. So I want to go through this rule set, and then it's like you'll see it develop a kind of an ecosystem to it. So we're going to firstly look at the first rule. They said each demon gets a damage threshold of when a projectile hits them. Now, a damage threshold, obviously, you can tell it's like some amount of damage has been done to the monster or whatever, and the damage threshold is now reached, so they're going to target something. With the player, if the player hits them, it's regardless. They will attack the player if you hit them, or if you get too close. But let's say something else is hitting them from the back or whatever, because of them being in the way, there's a damage threshold that they reach. And then once that damage threshold is exceeded, they'll turn around, ignore the player, and go attack the other thing that whatever hit them. This damage threshold also isn't static. It kind of decreases the more they walk, very interestingly. I think it's basically to tell how long the demon's been alive. So the damage threshold gets lower the longer they've been alive, in a way. But
interesting.
It's a very interesting thing, but it's overridden by 2 things, as I mentioned. If you attack the demon again after he's ignored you and gone off, if you attack him again, he's going to come back for you. Or if you make too much noise. So interestingly, the old Dooms well, basically still probably relied on a distance render or something, but they relied on, once they detect the player, then they will approach them. You don't always have to, like, if you stand and you can see the demon, it's not that they always come and attack you or aggro you. I think it's more of a distance render, that the closer you got, then they'll come to you. But basically, one of those two things happens, is he reverts back to normal. If not, he continues his path to go attack whatever hits him with the projectile. So that's rule number 1. But yeah, as I said, this is only for projectiles, not melees, because melee doesn't have a target. A melee is literally just an attack that's indiscriminate. It hits the player usually, and there's no, like, well, let me put it this way: the melee doesn't have a splash damage or whatever, or an intention inside. It's literally just attacking the player. We'll get into that a little bit later. The next thing is a demon can't attack his own type. So, for example, if you're familiar with the demons, a Kako demon, the big eyeball one with the thing that belches out the projectiles, he can't, even if he hits his own, he can't go and attack another Kako demon. It's coded that way to make sure that you don't have these type versus type fights. I've boiled that reasoning down to 2 things, and my thinking is either you're going to get these 2 massive enemies, like, let's say, the Barons of Hell, or the Hell Knights, or whatever, and one's going to hit the other one, and they're just going to freaking go at each other, and they're going to kill each other off at the exact same time, and it's going to kind of spoil the whole, experience of you fighting the demons and stuff like that. The same goes actually for the smaller ones, like Imps, which is a very low-level enemy, but let's say, obviously, the Imps have a very quick projectile that they throw and stuff like that, and the idea of an Imp is to swarm the player by being a lot of them. Like, they don't do a lot of damage, but they're really annoying when there's a lot of them around. So you try to clear them quickly. So I think it kind of defeats the purpose if you have all of these imps throwing each other accidentally and they all just freaking, end up fighting. And then, like, you've taken away that whole thing of, like, oh, they can't swarm the player anymore because they're freaking all having a civil war over there. So, that's my thinking of why they can't attack their own type. But yeah, we have that one, and the last one that is like the most important of the rule set is a demon cannot attack an archvile in retaliation. This is quite an interesting one. If you don't know what an archvile is, it's one of the big enemies in the game. Basically, it spawns in, and what its powers basically is, it can attack you. It has this like flame attack that it does, but it also can, if I'm not mistaken, it summons both new enemies to spawn at some point, and it heals other enemies. If it's long enough around, it'll heal the other enemies as well. So it's a very powerful thing. So you can imagine, like, you don't want the demons to attack that in retaliation, because the Archvile is a genuine challenge once it's in a level. It's a genuine threat to the Doom guy and to your life and whatever, because you need to take it out relatively quickly. And you don't want the demon to do all the work for you. The other thing I'm imagining as well is the Archvile has quite a lot of health. So, and obviously because it's sustaining attacks and stuff like that, it's going to attack in retaliation. So what's going to happen is it's going to attack in retaliation, and the other thing's going to get damaged, and then it's going to spend the rest of its time healing the thing it just damaged, because that's what it does. So it's going to become this endless loop of kill you, heal you, kill you, heal you. So basically, it is going to be a very interesting cycle over there. But this is a very interesting thing about the Archviles, and where the exploitation of all this all starts. Because even with these rules, gamers, we like to exploit stuff the moment we figure out, what's going on. That's one of the great things about gaming. True. It's like a cat and mouse game between us and the developers, because they think they got us in a corner. We're gonna have to do stuff this way, and we're just like, nope. We're just gonna go our own route. But one of the biggest things that happen is the Archvile does not have a damage threshold. What this means basically is, regardless of whatever hits him, he's going to attack the thing that hits him. He doesn't care. So, I don't know why they did this in the code. This one I couldn't figure out completely why he doesn't have a damage threshold. But imagine like a small, low-level enemy like an imp just hits him. He will go and attack that imp, probably kill him in one hit, but he will go and attack that imp. Say, annoying little mosquito! He burns him up, and then he resumes with his thing. But now the exploit of that is you have the Doom guy that's been dancing around the Archvile, and he just gets everything to keep hitting the archvile, because then he can't focus on Doom Guy, because he's spending his whole, I'm getting hit in the back. So it's like this whole cycle of like you keeping the archvile busy while freaking taking out all the other demons in the process. So that's the one exploit they have. Now we're going to circle back. You're going to notice all the other exploits that were also noticed. Well, it's not as exploitable as this one. This one's quite exploitable. These other ones were just, I think, kind of oversights. So recall I said that there's the damage threshold one is uniform. That's still around except for the archvile one. But the one that I said players can't or demons can't attack their own type. There was an exception to that. So in the old games, mostly, the old games also had, like environmental hazards. Like you obviously have your demons, which is a big threat, but in all standard run-of-the-mill old games like that, there were environmental hazards on the level as well to aid you or to like be in your way or whatever. One of these, obviously, a typical one, an exploding barrel. And whatever happens is if the barrel takes damage, it explodes. So they've obviously gone coded that whatever causes the barrel to explode, that will be targeted by the demon that took damage from the barrel. So in general, it is us. We use to shoot the barrel to get splash damage on the demons or whatever. But it can happen that a demon with a projectile hits a barrel, it explodes, and another demon nearby takes damage, and you have the same fight again. Now what's funny about this is, this is where the oversight was. They didn't take into account the type for this one, and it created a very funny exploit as well. So in this case, if you have this, let's say 2 Barons of Hell, 2 very beefy demons with a lot of health, and with both a projectile and melee attack. One of them throws a projectile, it makes the barrel explode, the other Baron of Hell gets damaged, and now he's angry and he turns against his own kind. Here's the problem. He can't hit him with a projectile, because the rule's in place that the other one can't get damaged by his own type with projectiles. So he's flinging his projectiles at full speed, and this other one's just ignoring him. He's just walking towards the player still. You get this other one just flinging his mate, who can't do anything. But then what happens is they get into range with each other, and the one that's targeting him, melee hits him, which has no rules whatsoever. Once something melee hits the other one, which now has a target, the other one will turn around and they'll target each other again, and they'll basically have like a claw fight to the death, basically. So that was a very interesting one, a version of that. But there's 2 more exploits even to this, which I found even funnier. The second one is, listen to what I just said, it only worked because that one was flinging projectiles, but then got close enough to do a melee attack. What if your demon doesn't have a melee attack and they're both the same type? So what you ended up having is, take 2 Mancubi, whatever. They don't have a melee attack. They only have their projectiles because they shoot guns. They have these like 2 guns for arms or whatever. And they can only shoot guns, so they only have projectiles. And one of them shoots a barrel, and maybe they both get injured or something. You can literally have the 2 Mancubi shoot at each other, do no damage, and it's an infinite loop of just doing this the whole time.
It sounds kind of fun, to be honest.
It is funny. It's literally like there's videos of it, just watching 2 Mancubi go like this for ages. Someone also interestingly did a video where they removed the code for the Archvile to not attack each other. And it's the funniest thing as well, because you've got 2 Archviles attack each other, and the one attacks the other one, and then he raises, like, he heals him, and the other one attacks the other one, then he heals him. It's like this whole cycle of them just doing this. Last one, my favorite one. If, I don't know how they oversighted this one, but it's still very funny. If an enemy like the Baron of Hell, I'm using him as an example because he's very huge and he does throw a lot of projectiles, but if a Baron of Hell throws a projectile at a barrel, the barrel blows up and he damages himself, the Baron of Hell will actually try and kill himself. He does this animation where he's clawing at himself like, Aah! He can't do any damage, but it's literally an animation of him just doing this. Aah! And you can just kill him then.
It's kind of brilliant. I like it.
I like it a lot. I had such fun like listening to videos and like watching the code and stuff with this, but I thought what a way to introduce a mechanic to a game by doing it very properly, like Doom has. This is like, for me, the purest form of infighting, because it's completely reactionary, it's completely accidental, and it kind of feels like almost a sentiency, you know? It's almost a sentiency, but in a way that it's a dumb sentiency, you know? Because obviously, as humans, if we hit someone by accident, we know it's an accident. This thing is in such a frenzy. The moment it gets hit, it's just like.
Yeah, it's closer to a bunch of crabs in a bucket.
Yeah, basically, that's basically what it boils down to. But it's such a, and that was the at the when they were asking about why there's infighting in demons. I can't remember if it was Romero or whoever said this, but he's literally said they're demons, they're crazy. That was his literal reason for why there was infighting between them. So yeah, that was, like I said, what a way to properly.
All the explanation we needed in the 90s.
Yeah, no, that was a legitimate explanation for a lot of things. So I thought it was amazing. But like I said, it's like this sort of properly doing it that really set the tone for a lot of them. And I think even the early games that started implementing it, it combined with emergent gameplay, which we have covered, and which is a huge proponent for how gaming works these days. But it also worked with a lot of new mechanics that were coming out. For example, Quake and Unreal both did this as well. In the end, they also had infighting within their monsters, like the Strog or whatever. And because you can combine it then with proper mechanics such as strafing and stuff, it becomes a legitimate strategy because you spend your time strafing around opponents, causing them to infight each other because of the whole mechanics and stuff like that. So it becomes a thing you can use and abuse. But yeah, that was basically the first taste of it. I would say okay, the modern Doom games don't have it, interestingly. I did notice that as well. The modern Doom games don't have that, and I think they removed it because of the. They wanted to have a bigger focus upon like the action between Doom Guy and demons because there's a lot of it. There's a lot of new cool ways to kill each other. So I think they sacrificed in the end. It is something interesting to think about because I don't think it works in every game. Even if your game has combat, I don't think it makes sense in every game. It's a cool thing, but it's like you need to sit with yourself and think: does this make sense? Would it work? Would it make, in terms of my story or narrative, is it logically sensible to assume that this could happen? Like if you're at war, for example, if you're at war and it's in a Call of Duty game and it's literally two nations warring with each other. If one guy accidentally kicks a guy in the shin, I would not expect the guy to whip out a knife and all of a sudden stab his friend. There's like a way to do that. So, yeah, I would say, well, maybe from your side, what if you had to think of any genre or game? Is there anyone you would say it doesn't make sense to have infighting in?
Yeah.
Probably like any Need for Speed game, I would say.
Like the cops fighting each other, then there's a crash, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's a robber! Fugitive!
Yep.
No,
Ooh, I don't really have anything off the top of my head.
Well, I have one which I was thinking about really quickly right before we started, and that was the only one I could think about was Souls games, which, like, I'll put it like I know besides bosses, just your. If I had to take Elden Ring as an example of the open world, there's a lot of like general fodder enemies what are running around. I think
Yep.
it would kind of take away from the whole purpose of Souls games if you had like the fodder enemies ending up fighting each other. Because I think it's like to show if you go through Caelid, right? This is the only place I've been to, so please forgive me if this is an easy place. But if you go through Caelid, there's a lot of difficult stuff and things that want to kill you in Caelid. I think it takes away from you if you end up getting the 2 or 3 or how many number of enemies to fight each other, when the whole point of the Souls game is to show how treacherous of a journey it is, how arduous it is, how you're going to die so many times, and you cheese it because you keep on getting the other stuff to fight themselves. I think it's like purpose of the game gets defeated there, in like a technical sense. You could still make it work.
Well,
I think
that makes sense.
Sekiro has a version of this, which we'll get to later, but I could be wrong about Sekiro. But I think Sekiro has a version of this, which we'll get to in a bit. But that is like I said, the purest form of infighting is this form of Doom, and I would say it's not been done as purely as this as much, but when it has been done really well. Could you think of any other examples where you feel like this level of infighting, where it's completely reactionary, accidental, or just like almost an event that happens? Is there any game that comes to mind for you that also does it this way?
Oh, for me, right now, it would have to be Prey 2017. Because first, it's the mimics fighting you or any other humans that are there.
Oh yeah.
But then near the end of the game, when the military bots come in, they're entirely fighting the mimics whether you're there or not, and it's just kind of awesome.
Yeah. Well, do mimics fight each other in the end? Is there ever an event where they can like have a go at each other?
You can kind of mind control them. There's like an ability to control one or two of the mimics, but no, the mimics never fight each other.
Because like yeah,
But
that's what I was thinking. That I think in Doom Eternal as well, you have the same thing where like you don't have the infighting as what the old Dooms had, but you do, you do have that one scene where like you have to take control of a revenant, which is one of the demons. You have to take control of him in order to do something, and it was also the most confusing thing for the other demons because like you mind control him basically, and he's walking around punching the crap out of them, and they're all like, why is he? He's turned on us.
yeah, that was good.
But yeah, that does
I mean,
sound like the mimics.
I'm playing Horizon Zero Dawn right now, and it also has that because you've got the cultists that are just like running around, which are humans, and then you've got the bots, and the bots will attack those cultists just the same way they attack you.
I will point out those ones. Those are two. That one you just mentioned is another form of infighting that I've recognized, and actually the mind control one. Those are two ones we're gonna get to, but those are also very good examples of like in a lot of games now. You especially see that one you mentioned, the one where there's like more than one enemy, and they're also enemies in a sense. You get a lot of those in normal gaming, but in the purest form, like Doom one, these are the ones I could remember that I played. The easiest one I could think of is Minecraft. They do have the infighting of like, especially skeletons. Skeletons just end up shooting any enemy, be it a zombie, a creep, or whatever, and then the immediate reaction is they will turn around and attack the skeleton that shot them. And the skeleton won't immediately always attack them until they go and melee the skeleton. Then they'll have a fight. Which was cool about this is obviously you want this to happen, but not for surviving essentially, but because every time the skeleton accidentally kills one of the mobs, whatever specific one, they die. They will drop a unique item that's only attainable through this method. Those music discs, it's only attainable through this way. So you need to, and especially in survival, you want to try and get this, especially because I mean there's no other way of getting it. So that's one of the ones that's like a very one I remember as a kid, especially because it was so amazing for me to figure out like, oh, I can make them all attack the skeleton. That's been annoying me. Especially when you're climbing through a cave and building. You know how annoying it is when you're trying to build out of a cave and the skeleton just shoots you from up top and you just fall back down in the cave you just tried to build out of. It's so bad. The other one that did this really cool version, but it's like I said, this is more like what you mentioned, Sock, with the cultists and the bots fighting each other. I think this is more two enemies fighting each other, but I thought this was really cool to include. Is the Monster Hunter World one, and I think Rise as well. But the Turf Wars is an amazing, amazing thing they added to those games. Where it's like, so you go hunting. Have you played the Monster Hunter games before?
I haven't, but
no, I tried playing it, and I think I needed an online connection, and my online connection was just too bad. So
that is unfortunately one of the requirements. No, that is. I remember I had the same struggles with Monster Hunter World. in the beginning, because we had well, I wasn't a commune, but it was Wi-Fi. So the thing would happen is I was just having a fun with my mates or whatever and playing, and this is the Wi-Fi goes, and eventually I just fall out of the lobby. I was like so frustrated. But no, Monster Hunter World. Obviously, the goal is you go and hunt monsters. So you have this. You prepare for a hunt. Say it's the big dragon you're fighting, right? To go hunt a big dragon. You prepare for the hunt. You set up camp. You have your companions or whoever goes with you, and you prepare for his stuff. Take him with. You go on a journey. You stalk the monster, or whatever, to his nest or something, and you go and start fighting because it goes in phases. You fight him in the beginning, he loses a bit of health, he flies off to his nest or whatever, or further along. You track him again because you track blood or whatever. You find him again, have more fights and stuff like that, and then out of nowhere, this is very spontaneous as well. Another monster will come out of nowhere and just start beating the crap out of this dragon or whatever because they're warring. They're in a turf war, and then they'll start having this massive fight, and they'll like go the entire world through fighting each other, and you just follow along because you're trying to pick up the scraps, and like you also get unique items from this as well. So this is an amazing. It's like a cinematic almost, where these two monsters are just. And then it's the same feeling you get from Godzilla and Kong. Sometimes you just want to see two big things go to basically see what happens because it's just one of those things. It's like it's like those neural activation things people talk about. It's like I just want to see two really big things smash each other. That's why the Transformer movies work so well. I just wanted to see two big things smash each other. The other one I can remember is Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor. Those two games did it exceptionally well with the Nemesis system, with the orcs, because same thing happens really here. You can cause infighting. There's a lot of events, obviously, with the Nemesis system because it's basically how the ranks of orcs across Mordor, whatever, is decided. They're basically dependent on some of them become generals, some of them get demoted, some of them get killed along the way and stuff like that. And that's just how like the hierarchies and stuff go. But you have specific events and stuff like that where you can cause infighting, where maybe there's an execution. It'll mark your map and say there's going to be an execution here of one orc captain executing another orc captain. So you can either let it play out and the orc captain gets executed and the other one gets promoted in the process. You can let it play out like that and then just kill off the one. Or if you intervene without necessarily killing either of them, you just intervene by scaring or breaking the execution thing. You could free the other one, and obviously these two, he was about to execute him, so I mean they're having a massive brawl all of a sudden with all of their forces or whatever, like just having a massive brawl between each other, and you can intervene at any time. But Shadow of War, Shadow of Mordor also had the mind control stuff, and it, like the one where you can mind control other orcs and then go fight for them, or you can do the one where, like I said, it's a bunch of like enemy types fighting each other, but like it's all across the map and stuff like that. So that one actually had the best of all of the worlds, really, when it comes to infighting. I'd say that's probably the best example very recently of very good infighting if you ever want to see it. Very good games as well. You get some other ones along the way. Days Gone also had it with the hordes, the freakers, because you can lure the freakers around quite a lot, and you can cause quite a lot of disturbances with them. So they were also quite well for infighting. But yeah, that is the pure infighting ones, I would say. The next type of infighting, which we did mention with what Sock mentioned now as well, is I kind of want to call it as third party infighting because it's always like there's a third party always involved and stuff like that. So the furthest I could try and trace it back from what I could figure out, it might some maybe in some RTS games and stuff might have been earlier. For example, I remember in Age of Empires there was always sometimes like depending on what level you played, like you'd have this kind of third party where it's like the only one that comes to mind currently is Age of Empires 3 because that's the one I played the most. Is like because Age of Empires 3 entire campaign was like, oh, you're taking over the new world, and because you're taking over the new world, let's say we were the British or the British. I think we've under the British flag, and obviously at the time the Spanish were also trying to take over, but in the middle you have these tribes, and you could either form alliances with these tribes if you did enough things, or they could just become an enemy to both the Spanish and the British, and they'll just attack you both, and you that could attack the tribes and whatever to get their resources. But the one that I find the most definitive one I could find was Halo Combat Evolved, where, strange enough, Halo Combat Evolved had friendly fire for, so the Covenant, the Covenant forces or whatever, the army, they could friendly fire each other through a lot of means. For example, if they shoot a mortar, they could friendly fire literally some of their allies over there. They won't turn on each other. But because of it's a freeway battle basically between the Spartans, the Covenant, and the Flood, I think is the last one.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
That's like the two that would always war if they were present on both levels, the Covenant and the Flood, and you've got to obviously play that to your strength or whatever you need it to be, because those two would always also fight each other. And that's the type of...
I mean, most of Halo 1, you're just fighting the Covenant.
Yes, the Covenant. And I think the Flood only comes later.
The Flood's only revealed near the end. But yeah, it was quite common, and it's always funny. It's one of the reasons the game is so fun to play is whenever the brutes come up, they'll just straight up smash the grunts like they're toys, and the grunts will actually run away from them most of the time, and it's always hilarious to see because the grunts near the end don't know who to run from, you or the brutes.
The only thing
everybody's just like killing them.
Yeah. No, the poor grunt, man. He just wants to quit his job. He's like, I didn't sign up for this. I don't want to do anything. The other one I thought of, which was another interesting approach to kind of third-party infighting, because I said a lot of games have gone this approach to show like that there's a lot of factions and stuff like that, because it's mostly faction-based when it comes to third-party infighting. There's usually factions involved. They say like, oh, these are the values I stand for, and they like, no, these are the values we stand for. They clash. You can have a side with the factions, or if you harm a faction, they can turn on you or whatever. This is usually where third-party infighting comes from. Though I will say another interesting one I thought of as well was Far Cry's one, because Far Cry's one was genuinely plays out like an ecosystem where you have the one way it specifically works is literally its ecosystem is like in Far Cry 4, for example, you have a lot of predatory things in Far Cry 4. You have you have tigers, bears, the eagle was a very annoying one, that eagle, oh my gosh. But tigers, bears on the ground. The Yetis. Although I don't think the Yetis ever interact with the other animals, but they are Yetis, yeah. Elephants are not obviously predatory, but they are very dangerous, obviously. The buffalo are also not predatory, but very dangerous. The rhinos as well. But what you did get in the end was you got a lot of interactions between the animals themselves, which was quite cool for the time, because you could have literally, maybe you're trying to hunt a tiger or something, and you're talking to tiger or something, and all of a sudden a bear just encroaches on its territory, and all of a sudden you have this massive tiger and bear fight just going on in front of you, until either one of them dies or one of them scares off the other one. So, I thought that was cool, because I mean, that's genuinely how the ecosystem works in real life, so I thought cool to see that in a video game every now and then, right before I plant 10,000 C4s on the freaking tiger or whatever. Very realistic. And the last one that I could think of, well, the last proper infighting I could think of, and you also mentioned this now with Horizon Zero Dawn. Well, Horizon Zero Dawn has it. You didn't mention Horizon Zero Dawn, but it also has it. I call it inductive infighting. This is also the mind control one, which you mentioned for Prey. But also, obviously, a lot of games have this. So, for example, Horizon Zero Dawn, you can take over. I think you can technically take over one of the bots. Yes.
Yeah, because it's the hacking stuff, and you need to go like unlock more stuff and everything.
That's the one you have to stealth, like you have to stealth, like almost like against the bot, and
you've got to be right up against him and press and hold and hope that none of the other machines attack you in that moment. Yeah.
I do remember that one. This is also one that's used quite often as well in modern gaming. Like I said, it's not. They derive a lot of the infighting. It's either the third party one or the inductive one, like this one, where it's like you use another enemy to go and kill the other enemies, either through mind control, like a way of puppeteering or controlling the enemy, or just enraging them, basically, because a lot of the gadgets and equipment and stuff that we usually get now is just enraging an enemy, which just means it attacks indiscriminately. It doesn't necessarily mean it'll stop attacking the player, but they'll attack indiscriminately. Like, for example, the most common one we use is like some sort of rage, whatever. So in Ghost of Tsushima, it's a rage like dart. As long as you and then it hits them, they get enraged and they'll start attacking the enemies, but they also still attack you because they do just swing, basically. But a lot of games have this. I feel like I always notice this with stealth games quite a lot. It's almost like it's become more of a stealth mechanic where you can have this sort of infighting because you're in the shadows or you're very far from a distance and you just watch, basically, or observe how the whole thing unfolds. It's always something. And that's from that. I do notice that also Far Cry again comes up because I think the outposts in Far Cry usually they have this like obvious placement of an animal cage in the outpost, and it's like you can break the animal cage, the animals will come loose and they'll start attacking, all the enemies inside of the outpost.
Isn't that how that popular meme got made of just like sneaking into a base, turning one of the animals, getting it free, and then just like hiding until the entire base is
Oh yeah, that's what I did for a lot of my Far Cry 4 outposts because it's like you get extra XP for doing it stealthily, and technically this counts as stealthily because they never saw you. So you just shoot the cage, you go sit in the bushes, and if it's a big enemy like an elephant or a tiger, they usually just clear the whole base. So that's why you just watch the chaos unfold from your binoculars or whatever.
Yeah, also, with the Assassin's Creed games, especially like from 2 all the way to Black Flag, they have like berserker darts.
Yes,
It's
that's
like
the
things
one.
in Ghost.
That's the one that
It's like the same
I
thing in
always think about.
Ghost.
The berserker thing or the rage, whatever the darts as well.
Yeah.
No, like I said, it's strangely become a stealth mechanic because it's almost like it's like in the chaos or something you can sneak through or you can stealthily do your stuff or whatever. It's always
Yeah.
kind of become paired now with stealth mechanics, which I find quite interesting because it's very cool in that way. Yeah, I'm trying to think now if there's any other cool way of inductive fighting. Can you think of any other way that like the infighting for you was really cool in the game? Like, oh, this was quite an innovative way of doing it or whatever. Now you also towered, huh?
This is a long silence.
I could hear it. You're thinking hard. I'll give you one I just thought of. I'll give you one that I found quite interesting. I didn't utilize it nearly enough, but it was always very entertaining. But I think the whole game itself was very entertaining once you got into it. The Watch Dogs 2 game. I found Watch Dogs 2 quite very entertaining, just for a very casual game, because of the whole how much chaos can you create from your cell phone, basically, type of thing. So Watch Dogs 2 had this whole scenario of stuff, and basically the neighborhood you were in, San Francisco, it had basically had these territories which they said always belonged to the gangs, so they would be in control. So you'd have to not only watch out for the police, but if you encroach on gang territory, they'd like warn you and say like you shouldn't be or whatever, and that you're trespassing. But one of the things you can do in the game to any individual really, you can put a hit. You can either phone the police or hack their phone or whatever to phone the police to, or like you create a fake profile,
A fake
wanted
yeah.
profile, yeah, of them. That's the one to get arrested. Or you could put a hit out on them from gangs. That's the other one, and this one was particularly interesting because if you put a hit out from a gang that's not in that territory from another gang, you can create gang warfare against each other. Because they'll rock up with their car, the other gang sees them, they're like, what the hell is this? And they start firing at each other. And because of all the firing at each other, the police rocks up, and you suddenly have this all-out frickin' shootout war between 3 different frickin' enemies. And it was very interesting. There's genuinely, I there's a YouTube video on this that I remember now watching, where like they've honestly probably modded it because it was on Grove Street of all places, but they sat there on a roof with like it looked like a CCTV camera, and they were just like following as like these gang members were having a shoot, like, and the police were shooting. It literally looked like live footage at some point. Like it was genuinely just shot that way. It literally looked like live footage. It was just gangs of police having a go at each other. I found that
Yeah, that
very
was like one of the best things about Watch Dogs 2 for sure.
the chaos. I think Watch Dogs 2 really reveled in like, let's just make it as chaotic as possible. You can hack anything. You could like be creative about it or whatever. Because I found it genuinely.
And then
like,
you look at Watch Dogs Legion.
I didn't even play that. Like even look at trying to play that at all once.
Yeah, don't. It's awful.
See, the closest experience I've had, really, other than like the most recent games, was actually Grand Theft Auto San Andreas with the gang warfare stuff.
Oh yeah.
I used to like set the gangs up against each other because it was just like, yeah, I don't want to really deal with this shit, but you guys will kill each other for me, so I'm just gonna leave.
I do remember doing that once or twice where I'd like try and lure the gang members, but like not obviously the ones with guns because they just shoot me off my bicycle. But I'd try and lure the ones with the bats or whatever, or the melee weapons, the knives. I try and lure a bunch of them on my bicycle to other gang members and just watching what happens.
See, it was slightly easier for me because I was playing on PC, so entering cheats was super fast.
Oh yes, okay. You were just spawning them, huh?
I wasn't spawning though. I wasn't that lazy, but I was like, I had my set of guns, and I also usually had a tank. So the police would be involved, but the police would be focused on me.
Yes, no, I see what that makes sense. Now, the final one I did include. I don't really consider this as infighting, but I did kind of include it because it kind of made me feel like, okay, this is also a thing that can happen spontaneously. I call it self-infighting, but as I said, I don't technically think this is infighting. But let me put it to you this way. There's games currently, obviously. There are a lot of games, especially RPGs, over the years that like had this really big mechanic of companions. Like companions, they're now a part of you. They can form relationships with them. You can form a party of companions. They'll follow you wherever you go. You know, they're part of your journey, whatever. That's the big thing about companions. But a lot of games also recently have done this mechanic where, like, obviously, a companion approves or disapproves of your actions because of the values they have. Because now they're observing what you do, and obviously it makes sense for them to agree or disagree, you know, what you're doing, and like express that sometimes to you. But at some point, some companions can get so fed up with you. Sometimes they just leave the party, but sometimes they get so fed up with you, they'll start attacking you. And that's not something you see every day, and it's quite spontaneous because it can cause like sort of self-infighting or something. Because sometimes those companions are also part of a faction or whatever, and suddenly you get, you lose approval with that faction or whatever. So the one that comes to mind, the one you said you didn't enjoy playing all that much, is Fallout, because I remember especially in Fallout 4, you could deteriorate your relationships with some of the companions so badly that they will leave. They'll like leave your party or whatever. But if you attack them, then they become a direct enemy. Then you can actually.
Oh yeah, them. I mean, we had that experience in Skyrim as well with the vampire lady and a few of the other ones. Like, especially after the updates. Like, if you do things that are too questionable, your companion will leave.
I think the Dark Brotherhood as well, not for doing things too questionable because they are the questionable faction, but I think the Dark Brotherhood you can literally turn on them mid quest line or something like that. I can't remember too well.
No, you do turn on in their quest line. You do turn on them mid quest line, but before you start their quest line, you can go to the Empire and be like, "Listen, someone from the Dark Brotherhood contacted me and they gave me their address. Do you want to kill all of them?"
You burned the place or something, I can't remember.
Yeah.
I remember now.
Because halfway through the Dark Brotherhood questline, that does happen anyway, but you're not there. And the only survivor is the vampire kid.
No, that's true. I do remember that.
I know you. Yeah, turning your own companion against you. It only really happened after the update with the vampire lady Celine or Serene or something
Serena.
like that. I forget her
Serena.
name. Serena. There we go. Yeah.
I
Before
remember.
that, you could do basically anything, and they would just follow you.
No, they would. I remember. All I really remember about Serena was like people genuinely wanted to marry her in Skyrim. Like, oh my gosh, just give me a Serena romance mod, please.
I think it was because she was probably the first actual companion in Skyrim that was properly made, and she had like a personality.
Nah, come on, man. Lydia is the one. She's the best one.
Yeah, but Lydia has a brick wall, man.
She just doesn't want to go see you go anywhere unsafe, man. She's just trying to help.
She's a brick wall. Like literally, you just she's a brick wall with a backpack. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, Lydia, good old Lydia. I remember so many traps in dungeons. Like, I tried to get the trap to smack Lydia, and then she just, like, just goes, and then she just stands there while the trap is smacking her. Oh. There's another one. It wasn't implemented, like, very fully, because it was just I think, a way to a different way to fail it. But I don't know if you remember the SOCOM games. SOCOM Navy SEALs.
Oh yeah, dude. Dude, those are the games I played on the PS2 like a lot.
Because I remember they were basically the equivalent of the Ghost Recon games that came after them on the next gen. Basically, the SOCOM ones, you just go on a mission and you have like a lot of recon and stuff like that. But I do remember in those missions, I think if you accidentally friendly fire one of your teammates, they'll all just scream "Traitor, traitor!" and they just all shoot and kill you, basically. If I remember that correctly.
Yeah.
My memory could be really hazy about this one, but that's what I think I remember. So
No, they do. If you like unload your whole mag onto one guy, they'll just like kill you instantly.
unload your whole mag, dude. At that point, at that point, you should be dead already. Holy hell. But yeah, self-infighting, I think, is a concept that maybe could use a little bit. Like, it could genuinely be a concept if it's like implemented properly. Because I said, like, I don't technically count this because this is just normal stuff. Like, this is more companion relationships, or this is more just a fail. Like I said, the friendly fire thing, you just failed the mission really. Because like once you friendly fire the SOCOM guy, you'd fail the mission anyway because you died or whatever. But I think self-inviting would be really cool as a choice in the game. Can you think of any game maybe that you'd like to see self-inviting in, where like you can have some sort of spontaneous reaction like this?
Hmm.
Hold on.
What about a Doom stealth game?
You mean Doom 3? You mean Doom 3?
Okay, but Doom 3 but better.
Alright, I get you. Doom 3 2.
You know, I would honestly like to see it in one of the farming sims because so many of them are just like you're the only real like fighter in the game, and all of them fight you. Like everything fights you. Nobody fights each other. Like I want to go like play Slime Rancher free, and some of the slimes are fighting each other. You know.
Oh, I see what
Well,
I was literally. I was thinking about farming sims like Farming Simulator. I was like, you want someone to
no, no,
drive
no,
over your own crops while you're trying to freaking
no,
harvest them.
no. Or
I
like
would be down.
Stardew Valley is the same. Like it's like Stardew Valley has how deep does that dungeon go? I think it's like 50 levels, and all 50 levels you're the only fighter. Not
Yeah,
even
yeah.
someone from the village fights. Like none of those things fight each other either. I think it would be very interesting to actually get one of those games where they do fight each other. And I'm actually looking at a game now that's set to release in a couple of months or years
Mm, I
that
did have.
might have it.
I do have thoughts. What if we do? Because it's like one of those mechanics you can definitely add to the game because it's like one of those things that happens in real life, but in the kayfabe as well. Is what if you have a WWE game, right? And you have a tag team match, but in the tag team match, like you can hit anyone. Like the targeting system shouldn't be discriminated just your opponents. You can hit anyone. So I know that the WWE games is like, if you do manage to clock the ref too many few times, that you will disqualify you. That's already a thing. But what if you do a tag match and you just like keep clocking your own teammate, and at some point he gets fed up, he power bombs you and leaves you in a handicap match? I'd love to see that actually, because then it's a genuine WWE thing. Maybe that happens in real life. Like the guy accidentally hits him for whatever reason. He thinks he's turning on him. He freaking massively gives him a finish, and he walks off. He's like, "I'm done with you. I'm done with you. You've tried to turn on me or whatever." Because
You keep forgetting that WWE is all planned out, man.
that's what I said, man. But this is all part of the script.
What?
No, you can't tell us this, man. I was following that product so nicely now. It's all happening in the moment. It's all happening in the moment. The other one,
Sure.
the other only one I can think about with, well, it's not really self-infighting. It's just too much freedom. Is literally Outer Worlds that I'm playing now, because Outer Worlds has this marketing thing, and it's genuinely a marketing thing. It's something they used. I remember they marketed as it's like you can kill any NPC in the game, and I do mean any NPC, story critical or not. You can put one in the back of their head, and the story goes on.
Oh yeah.
So I think that's one that's
brick your
typical.
entire playthrough within like 5 minutes of starting the game.
Well, I do remember what the first hour I played or something. Now I woke up. Basically, the thing was I was in a cryo sleep because we were on our way to a new civilization, and they abandoned everyone in our cryo sleep pod because I think something went wrong with our spaceship. So we all sat there in cryo sleep for 70 years or something. Someone came and got me out, but then the feds were on him, so he could only get one person out. So he escaped with me. He tried to see, like, he said, listen, we're going to get everyone else out. We just need to figure out how we're going to do that without the feds on our ass. And I crash land on this planet basically because we were in a spaceship, and he sent me out on a pod. He says, because obviously he's wanted, he's being chased, so he thought like it's safer. I'm going to drop you off on this planet, and we'll figure it out from there. And he drops me off on the planet, and I remember in the game the first interactions I have, despite now of him, is I come in this cave, and there's this like this is a faction I don't know. They're called Spacer's Choice or whatever, but they sounded like the corporate faction or whatever. And this guy sat in his cave, and he's like, "Oh, don't go out there. There's marauders outside or something." And he's sat in the cave. He's barricaded himself in the cave with explosive barrels. And he said, "Don't worry, man. If they come in here, I only need one shot, and I'll kill all of them." I was like, "You're stuck in a cave with explosive barrels, and you can't go anywhere. What were you thinking?"
So dumb.
So I lied, basically. I lied. I said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of them. Give me your gun." And he gives me a gun. I put one in the back of his head, and then I exploded all the barrels, and I went on. And then I met up.
That's so evil.
I went to the ship, the spaceship out there that was like left by someone else that I could use to escape. And there's two of these generals, the Spacer's Choice people, and I thought, oh gosh, it's literally corporate, because if you hear them talk, I kid you not, they're like, "Oh, this is the property of Spacer's Choice. Spacer's Choice needs to be reported by the Spacer's Choice. Spacer's Choice." I got so fed up with her, and she says the same thing. She's like, "I wish I don't have to be out here. I want to be back with my Spacious Choice colony, but these damn marauders, they're always in the way and stuff." I'm like, "Don't worry, I'll help you take them out." I was like, "Yeah, let's get them." And they go towards the marauders. I put one in the back of her head. I put one in the back of her assistant's head. I killed all the marauders. I went into the ship that was there. I come out. There's this like HR guy from Spacer's Choice. He's like, "Do you mind telling me what's going on here? Like, I see two dead Spacer's Choice bodies, and I see a lot of marauders. What happened?" And I just basically said, uh, they both chaotically and inexplicably killed themselves brutally. And it's like, "Oh no, second time this month. I'll get the bodies to be carted off." And I was like, "Well, I'm just gonna keep on killing and see what happens." Basically, that's my that's my playthrough so far.
Bro's going with the Jack the Ripper storyline.
Nah, bro, I'm gonna be known across the galaxy, man. Not just in London. It'll be across the galaxy. But yeah, that's basically the concepts of infighting and a little bit of breaking the rules and stuff when it comes to infighting and all that I could think of. Is there anything? I think the last question would be: is there anything in the future of infighting you'd want to see? Is there anything Any genre, any concept, any whatever, anything like at all from any of them?
I think it could be like really expanded on in stealth games
Yeah.
because like it's such a like unique style and it just fits perfectly.
I think it's like, yes, I would say, I think regardless of genre stuff, but stealth would be especially cool. I think it would be like, because the go-to in stealth currently, as we said, is the inductive one. You just shoot a poison berserker
Yeah.
dart, or you shoot a mind control thing like the Aloy with the robot or whatever, and the mind control or whatever, and it goes on. I think it would have been fun. It would be more fun as well if you have to do a little bit more effort with it, but it can really pay off. Like, make two people like very paranoid of each other, like in some way. Like, let's say
Ooh.
you have two guards on station, they're on high alert or something, and like you shoot a bullet over this guard's head, and like turns around, and all he obviously sees is his other mate down there, and he's like, what? And he goes back, and then you shoot another one over the other guy's head, and he's like, huh? Then after a while, you just shoot one right between them, and they just unload on each other, like, oh! I think that would have been like,
Yeah,
just a
dude,
fun
don't give
concept
this
like
idea
that.
to Ubisoft because they have like a dog shit like stealth system where it's like if a shot comes out at like one direction, they'll instantly all
Everyone
arrow
turns
towards you.
towards that one
Oh
direction,
yeah,
and
they
they'll
always
go.
know where you are. I was
Yep.
just about to say, is like that's like almost the only thing that I really wish some of these systems had is not magnetically knowing that you were the one that shot them, especially if you are
Yes.
supposedly in full stealth mode, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if I'm like level 50, I've got every stealth skill there is. Like I'm almost basically invisible according to the rules of the game. And there's like one errant shot that I take and suddenly everyone knows exactly where I am. Make it like let them fight each other a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make that a possibility.
I would say if there's any game that might implement this, it might be that new project that Kojima's working on. I forgot the name. The espionage one.
Yeah. I really hope it will be like the Metal Gear Solid like successor.
Well, I think it's gonna be the same treatment as what Obsidian did with Outer Worlds as to Fallout, where Kojima is literally gonna look at it like Metal Gear. He's gonna say, "These are the concepts I want to put in my new game, and I'm gonna add a few new stuff because this is now like solely my vision." And he's gonna put in a few new stuff, and he's gonna
Yeah.
implement that as a
I
game.
mean,
But it's
I'm really just if I'm honest with Kojima, I just want him to actually finish the game this time and not be rushed at the end.
well,
Because
tell Konami
what
to stop
Metal
rushing
Gear
him.
is because Metal Gear that was just a disaster. The fact that some
You
of
want to
the
know
boss
why it
fights.
was rushed? You want to know why?
Tell us.
So the reason why it was rushed is because of budgeting reasons and because of how much stuff that Kojima wanted to have in MGS5 that they were like, yeah, let's just pull the plug, and then they were like, okay, fuck you, Kojima.
Oh man, just why?
Yeah, well, that's why, like
A
I said, I
whole
think
act just gone.
that's why I think, like, in terms of games, like Death Stranding was the first one. Like, that's the first Kojima game I played, but like that game, I can't imagine that was not his vision. It's too weird and too out there to not have been his full vision. That's what genuinely made me happy. I was
Yeah.
like,
Well, you could say that about every game that he's made.
well, yeah, the Metal Gear ones are quite weird. I'm not gonna lie as well.
Weird is putting it mildly.
But I love him for that, man. That's
Yeah,
what Kojima
that's Kojima's whole niche, really.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, but yeah, that is infighting as a concept as a whole. Hopefully, we do get a little bit of expansion because I think it's like one of the more underrated mechanics in games. Definitely very implementable, especially in new games. With the whole you want to revitalize your combat and stuff like that. Definitely something to consider future developers. But again, thank you to my regulars, Mr. Sloney, Mr. Sock. Had a fun time discussing it with you
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And I hope you all learned something, especially from the Doom thing. Like I said, that was probably the most interesting thing I've read in quite a while. The whole Doom.
Yeah, I did not expect it to be Doom. Like, out of every game, I did not think it would be Doom.
I was
I was also pretty shocked. Thought it would be something older.
No,
Yeah.
the more I thought about it, the more it made sense in the end. But I was also surprised. I was like, oh, this is new. But then I more thought about it, I was like, it's kind of the only answer that makes sense at the time. Except for
Yeah.
Wolfenstein. That was the only one. I was like, if I was gonna guess anything earlier, it probably would have been Wolfenstein. But I get why they didn't put it into the. Well, I get why it wouldn't make so much sense to Wolfenstein. But like in Doom, it makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. But yeah, thanks again for everyone watching. Hopefully this recording does make it to the end. But it does look like that way. But other than that, hope to see you on the
Surely.
next podcast. Hope we all have a great day wherever you may be. And we'll chat soon to you. Cheers, everyone.
Bye.